60 meters below the Caribbean Sea, a single submarine commander stares at his targeting solution. Range, 12,000 meters. Target USS George Washington, a 100,000-ton American supercarrier with 5,000 souls aboard. His finger hovers over the launch button. One torpedo, one decision, and 7 minutes before the entire U.S. Atlantic Fleet turns his submarine into a coffin. This is the story of the most dangerous game of cat and mouse ever played in the Western Hemisphere, and why the U.S. Navy's response didn't just end a threat, it rewrote the rules of naval warfare in contested waters. But to understand what happened in those desperate hours, we need to go back 3 weeks earlier to a diplomatic crisis that would push two nations to the brink. April 2019, the Caribbean Sea. Venezuela, once an oil-rich powerhouse, is collapsing under economic sanctions and political isolation. President Nicolás Maduro's government, desperate to project strength and distract from domestic chaos, announces major naval exercises, provocatively close to international shipping lanes used by U.S. Navy vessels. The U.S. responds with routine freedom of navigation operations. The USS George Washington Carrier Strike Group, accompanied by 2 guided missile destroyers, a nuclear attack submarine, and supporting vessels, enters the region for scheduled exercises with Colombian and Brazilian naval forces. To Washington, it's standard deterrence. To Caracas, it's an insult. Venezuela's submarine fleet is small but not insignificant. 2 German-designed Type 209 diesel-electric submarines, the Sabalo and the Caribe. These are hunter-killers designed for one purpose: coastal defense and anti-surface warfare. Quiet. Deadly at close range, and in the hands of a commander with nothing to lose, unpredictable. On April 23rd, the Sabalo slips out of its naval base at Punto Fijo under cover of darkness. Its official mission: participate in defensive exercises. Its actual orders remain classified, but U.S. naval intelligence would soon learn they were far more aggressive. Within 48 hours, the Sabalo disappears from surface radar. The U.S. carrier group continues its operations, unaware that somewhere in the dark waters below, a predator is closing in. April 26th. 3:40 hours. The USS Nitze, an Arleigh Burke-class destroyer escorting the carrier, picks up a faint acoustic signature, a passive sonar contact, bearing 187, range 18 nautical miles. The signature matches a diesel-electric submarine running on battery power, nearly silent, but not silent enough. The contact is designated Master 1. The carrier strike group shifts into alert condition 3. Every ship goes weapons tight. The P-8 Poseidon Maritime Patrol aircraft overhead deploys sonobuoys in a search pattern. The carrier's escorting attack submarine, USS Boise, moves to intercept. But Master 1 knows it's been detected, and it makes a calculated gamble. Instead of retreating, the Sabalo drives deeper 90 meters and turns directly toward the carrier. It's a suicide run. Or a bluff, the question racing through the minds of every tactical officer in the strike group: does this submarine commander actually intend to fire? At 4:12 hours, the answer becomes clear. The Sabalo's fire control radar goes active. It's lighting up the carrier with targeting data. The destroyers detect it instantly. Within seconds, Mark 54 anti-submarine torpedoes are being loaded. Helicopter-launched depth charges are armed. The carrier begins evasive maneuvers, 5 million pounds of steel turning hard to starboard at 30 knots. The Sabalo is now 12,000 meters away. Well within torpedo range, here's where the U.S. Navy faces an impossible choice. Rules of engagement are clear. Hostile intent must be proven before deadly force is authorized. But proving intent with a submarine is different. Unlike surface ships, submarines don't issue warnings, they don't show flags. By the time you know for certain a submarine is hostile, the torpedo is already in the water. The strike group commander, a veteran of Cold War submarine chases, has 7 minutes to decide. Fire first and risk an international incident. Wait and risk the lives of 5,000 sailors. He chooses option 3. At 4:16 hours, USS Boise closes to attack position, not to destroy, to trap. Using active sonar, the Boise pings the Sabalo repeatedly, flooding its hull with acoustic energy. It's the underwater equivalent of shining a spotlight on a burglar. The Venezuelan crew knows instantly they've been found, they're being tracked, and they're being told in no uncertain terms, "We can kill you whenever we want." Simultaneously, 2 SH-60 Seahawk helicopters deploy dipping sonar directly above the Sabalo. They don't drop weapons. They don't need to. The message is clear: you are surrounded, you are outmatched. Stand down for 8 agonizing minutes, nothing happens. Then at 4:24 hours, the Sabalo's active radar goes dark. Its depth increases. It turns east away from the carrier. The chase is over. The Venezuelan submarine surfaces 90 minutes later, 40 miles from the carrier group, and transmits a distress call claiming mechanical failure. The U.S. Navy offers humanitarian assistance. It's declined. The Sabalo limps back to port under escort from a Venezuelan Coast Guard cutter. But the U.S. response doesn't end there. What happened next changed everything. Within 72 hours, the Pentagon declassifies sonar recordings and tracking data, unprecedented transparency designed to send a message. The images are released to international media, clear footage of the Sabalo being tracked, surrounded, and neutralized without a shot being fired. It's a masterclass in deterrence. The Venezuelan government claims the submarine was conducting defensive exercises and never posed a threat. The U.S. Navy doesn't argue. It doesn't need to. The footage speaks for itself. Venezuela sent a submarine to confront a U.S. carrier strike group. The U.S. Navy found it, tracked it, boxed it in, and let it go because it could. But behind the scenes, the diplomatic fallout is severe. The U.S. imposes additional naval sanctions. Venezuelan officers involved in planning the operation are quietly removed from command. And the Sabalo itself is dry-docked indefinitely, not for repairs, but because Venezuela can no longer afford to operate it. For naval strategists, this incident becomes a case study in modern anti-submarine warfare. The U.S. Navy demonstrated something far more intimidating than firepower: total domain awareness. The ability to detect, track, and neutralize threats without escalation. To control the battlefield so completely that the enemy's only rational choice is retreat. And for Venezuela and any other nation considering asymmetric challenges to U.S. naval power, the message was unmistakable: you cannot hide. But there's a deeper lesson here, one that echoes through every submarine confrontation since the Cold War. Submarine warfare is psychological warfare. It's about fear, the fear of an enemy you cannot see, cannot hear, and cannot predict. For decades, submarines have been the ultimate equalizer, allowing smaller navies to threaten larger ones through stealth and surprise. But technology has shifted the balance. Modern sonar networks, satellite reconnaissance, AI-driven acoustic analysis, the oceans are no longer as dark as they once were, and the U.S. Navy has invested billions to ensure that when a submarine tries to hide, it fails. The Venezuelan Sabalo incident didn't end in explosions or casualties. It ended with silence. A submarine surfacing, defeated not by weapons, but by the knowledge that it had been seen all along. And perhaps that's the most terrifying weapon of all, not the torpedo that destroys you, but the sonar ping that tells you, we've been watching you the entire time. In the depths of the Caribbean, beneath a carrier group steaming toward the horizon, the rules of naval warfare were rewritten. Not with fire and steel, but with precision, patience, and overwhelming technological superiority. The Sabalo returned to port. The carrier group sailed on. And beneath the waves, the silent game of hunter and hunted continues, with the U.S. Navy holding every card.